everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. Here's a look at today's show. Another head rolls in the Trump administration. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, just the latest to leave the White House. Our look at some of the many who've rolled out the revolving door coming up. Then heavy rain and melting snow bring unprecedented flooding to Canada. Montreal and Ottawa both declaring states of emergency. And an American city better known for its violence and social inequality soothed by the sweet sounds of music. More from Orchids in Baltimore on the way. I'm Jeannie Godula. Venezuela was rocked by new protests this week as opposition leader Juan Guaido declared the final phase of what he's called Operation Freedom. He's got the backing of some 50 nations around the world in his quest to take power away from President Nicolas Maduro. But the key to the power struggle lies with Venezuela's powerful army. The military has always played an important role in the political life of the country, taking part in coups that have both toppled and restored power. But as Cami Nedelec explains now, the army's loyalty to Maduro remains strong.
Two leaders and one army at the epicenter of Venezuela's power struggle. Juan Guaido knows he can't bring down the current regime without the support of the military. But they have stood by Nicolas Maduro since 2013, although some have defected, including the head of the secret police. In this video posted on Twitter, Juan Guaido stands with some of the men he claims have switched sides.
Today, our armed forces, brave soldiers, brave patriots, brave men attached to our Constitution, answered our call. I invite you to go out into the streets of Venezuela.
But Juan Guaido needs the whole army to back him. Hugo Chavez traded money and power for military support, and that setup hasn't changed under Nicolas Maduro. The military has grown accustomed to a huge budget, special treatment, and access to top jobs in government in exchange for their support. Even the national oil company is headed by a former general. It's a lot to give up. Juan Guaido is offering amnesty to those who abandon the Maduro regime. Washington also wants a deal.
The U.S. will consider sanctions off-ramps for Venezuelan officials and military members who take concrete, measurable steps to support democracy and freedom in Venezuela. Maduro's cronies should accept interim President Guaido's offers of amnesty and work with us to secure their future.
As the crisis worsens, the flow of money that paid for the army's loyalty may dry up. And that is when the real turning point could be.
The Mueller investigation made more headlines in the U.S. this week as Attorney General William Barr got a grilling from the Senate Judiciary Committee. He faced lawmakers for the first time since releasing Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report into possible collusion with Russia during the presidential election. That comes as Mueller himself expressed frustration this week on the way Barr portrayed the conclusions of the report last month, with the Attorney General saying it cleared Trump of any obstruction of justice. Mueller and his team say they found evidence on both sides of the question, but didn't reach a conclusion. The Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, meanwhile, lost his job this week, the latest of the revolving door of the Trump administration. There have been dozens of job changes since the president first took office almost 2.5 years ago. Peter O'Brien takes us back through some of the big departures under Donald Trump.
You're fired. Donald Trump was just as happy to jettison contestants on The Apprentice as he is those working in his presidential administration. The list of dismissals and resignations during his tenure is enormous and hasn't stopped growing. Rod Rosenstein is the latest out. As Deputy Attorney General, he oversaw the investigation into claims of Russian interference in the 2016 election, announcing his departure shortly after the report was released. Trump frequently attacked him on Twitter, but Rosenstein says he was grateful for the opportunity. Kirstjen Nielsen recently left her job as Homeland Security Secretary after the president blamed her for the rate of migration on the border with Mexico. She'd faced widespread criticism for separating migrant children from their parents and said she felt it was the right time to step aside. Jim Mattis lasted just over 2 years in office as Defense Secretary from the beginning of Trump's tenure. His views differed to the president's, who announced the departure one day after deciding to pull US troops from Syria. Nikki Haley had been a vocal critic of Donald Trump during his campaign, but went on to serve as the administration's ambassador to the United Nations for almost 2 years, notably withdrawing the US from the UN Human Rights Council. In the first year alone of Trump's presidency, major departures included campaign manager turned White House strategist Steve Bannon, Anthony Scaramucci, communications director for just over a week, Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, who lost Trump's confidence, Press Secretary Sean Spicer, FBI Director James Comey, controversially shown the door while working on the Russia investigation, and Mike Flynn, the National Security Advisor who misled the Vice President over undisclosed contact with Russian officials. Trump's administration has seen at least 240 job changes, including routine ones, in just over 2 years, possibly the highest turnover rate in US history.
Next to Canada, where extreme flooding in the east of the country has forced thousands of people from their homes. Heavy rain and melting snow caused unprecedented flooding, with the provinces of New Brunswick, Quebec, and Ontario worst hit, and the main cities of Montreal and Ottawa declaring a state of emergency. Julia Kim reports.
Bracebridge, Ontario, ravaged by floodwaters. The town borders on Muskoka Lake, which has seen water levels surge to record highs. Residents there have been forced to flee their submerged homes in canoes. In the neighbouring province of Quebec, west of Montreal, rising floodwaters burst through the dike, inundating the suburb of Sainte-Marthe-sur-le-Lac. A frantic evacuation ensued. Thousands of inhabitants were rushed out of their homes. Floodwaters, though, haven't been limited to rural areas. In the capital, Ottawa, record-breaking water levels have forced the closure of the bridge that links it to Gatineau. The city, which is bordered by 2 rivers, has been flooded for the second time in 2 years, a nightmare for its residents.
Fingers crossed. We don't know what will happen now. So, scary.
From Ontario to southern Quebec to New Brunswick, the combination of heavy spring rainfall and rising temperatures has sped up the melting of winter snow. For the second time in 2 years, eastern Canada has been devastated by what's called a 100-year flood. But an event that normally occurs once a century has now happened twice in 2 years. And for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, this is now Canada's new reality.
With climate change, we're going to see more and more of these extreme weather events more regularly. It means we have to think about adaptation, mitigation, and how we're going to move forward together.
Authorities have warned that it may take weeks for water levels to recede. More than 10,000 people have been evacuated since the deluge began, twice as many as in 2017, when eastern Canada was hit by what was then considered the worst floods in half a century.
Next to Baltimore, where 4 years after the riots against police brutality, the Maryland city is still better known for violence and social inequality than it is for music. But the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra is looking to change just that. It's launched a free program called Orchids, serving more than 1,300 underprivileged children.
In this West Baltimore school, this cacophony of notes marks the sound of a 60-student orchestra. These young musicians are part of Orchids, a program that aims to inspire social change through musical education. Modeled after a similar program in Venezuela, more than 1,000 elementary school students now find refuge here from the streets of Baltimore, whose homicide and violent crime rates are among the highest in the U.S.
Many of those kids take 2 or 3 buses from another part of town after school to travel to where we meet. It takes a lot of energy. It means that they have to leave or sacrifice doing other things in their schools, and they do it.
Stephanie has been practicing the cello here 4 times a week for the past 7 years. She says she didn't even like classical music before joining the program. Now, Stephanie dreams of one day teaching it and has even been chosen to participate in a prestigious summer program in Michigan.
Some of them, they don't like it at the moment, but then I tell them it's something very nice. It's something that gets you away from bad influences, and it can really have positive change in your life.
Orchids is the brainchild of Marin Alsop, who became the first female conductor of a major U.S. orchestra when she joined the Baltimore Symphony in 2007. Alsop decided to use her platform to make classical music more accessible to Baltimore's youth.
Through programs like Orchids, they start to see a different kind of future. You know, they're able to travel, to play, they're able to see the world in a way. They're on stage, they're receiving positive affirmation for what they're doing.
Baltimore's reputation for violence and social inequality crossed international radars when the city erupted in riots in 2015 over the death of Freddie Gray, a black man killed due to police negligence. Orchids is looking to change that reputation by turning Baltimore into a city of music rather than crime.
We'll wrap up now in the United States, where a bit of history's been made with Sports Illustrated's annual swimsuit issue. Next month's magazine, known for showcasing women in revealing bikinis, will have the very first Muslim model to wear a hijab and the full-body swimsuit known as a burkini. Halima Aden is a Somali-American model who was born in a refugee camp in Kenya before moving to the U.S. when she was 7. Aden made headlines 3 years ago when she was the first woman to wear a hijab in the Miss Minnesota USA pageant. She's also appeared on the cover of British Vogue and on runways at New York Fashion Week. She posted on her Instagram this week, "Ladies, anything is possible." We'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching this Inside the Americas. Don't forget, you can watch it again on our website, the address france24.com. And we'll see you again next week for all the news from north to south.